Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to From Data to Decisions, AI Inside Power BI. I'm Michelle Robinson, Learning Center Director at SystemSource. Over the next hour, we'll show you how AI can level up your Power BI game, helping you uncover deeper insights, troubleshoot data models, generate DAX measures and calculated tables, and even create AI-powered visuals and narrative text. In short, smarter models, sharper reports, and better decisions. I have a few quick notes before we dive in. Number one, if your pizza hasn't arrived, email Julie Dellinger at jdellinger@syssource.com and she will track it down for you. No one should learn on an empty stomach. Today's session is being recorded and we'll send the recording via email this afternoon. Simply drop your questions in the Q&A at any time, and John will be sure to tackle them by the end of the webinar. If you experience technical difficulties, use the chat and our support team will jump right in. And then, of course, at the end, we'll share a short survey. Your feedback helps us continue to raise the bar, and it's a great way for you to share with us what you'd like us to host next. For those new to SystemSource, let me give a little background. Our journey began in 1981. We support organizations end-to-end, beginning with IT and end-user training, building dedicated classrooms and conference spaces, including digital signage. We're experts in consulting and cloud infrastructure, plus managed services and responsive support. We help teams maintain and move forward with confidence, and that is our team in a little bit of a nutshell. And now it is my pleasure. Before I do, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about, and that is we do offer about 36 to 40 webinars a year, and our next webinar is coming up March 18th, and that's for managers titled 20 Questions I'd Ask When Choosing a Managed Services Provider. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Jon O'Keefe. He's our lead instructor in business intelligence and AI with loads of experience helping organizations truly understand their data. Jon knows how to turn Power BI into a data decision-making powerhouse. So with that said, Jon, let's get started.
All right, everybody. Let me go ahead and minimize our PowerPoint here. So today's webinar is all about Power BI and artificial intelligence. And I want to break this down into two separate categories because there's two ways I want to approach the utilization of artificial intelligence with Power BI. The first way I want to approach it is through the use of what we call generative AI. And those are tools that many of you have likely heard of, such as ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Claude, Gemini, and a whole host of other generative AI tools. These are tools that are designed by nature for you to interact with, ask questions of, upload files to, and get help with applications like Power BI. So the first section of our class is going to be talking about how we use generative AI from start to finish to help us with our Power BI projects. Our second component of this webinar is going to be utilizing the AI that is built into Power BI. There are a couple of different AI features inside of Power BI that help us build visualizations and create what we call smart narratives. There's also inside of the Power BI fabric the ability to get additional insights utilizing AI, as well as utilize an AI question and answer feature on dashboards. So all of these things form a complete package around the use of AI inside of the Power BI desktop application. Now, as someone who teaches Power BI and who teaches a lot of new students, one of the first big challenges that students face or end users face when utilizing Power BI is before we even get to the building of the visualizations, the shaping of the data that goes on behind the scenes. One of the first big challenges that most end users will face is with their raw data that they're going to be loading in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to show you a couple of key elements here of raw data. So our organization is an organization, this fictional organization that we're going to build Power BI for, its reports for, is a fictional organization that sells sporting goods. And Power BI, when you first load it, if you've never seen the application before, and you go ahead and you make a whole blank report, Power BI starts out absolutely empty. There's nothing here. I can't build anything. I can't make any visualizations. There's no data connected. It is just a blank engine. Much like the first time you open Excel or Word, there's nothing there, right? You need to add in whatever you're going to do. Power BI, the first thing that you'll be connecting to and adding to are data sets. Now, these data sets can come from a variety of locations. They'll typically be data that your organization has collected, and often that will come in the form of an Excel file. So here we have a Microsoft Excel file. This Excel file contains what we call transactional data. Now, transactional data for Power BI doesn't just mean it comes from a cash register, although it can. Transactional data usually refers to data where each event is captured in a row. And then there are supporting columns that contain additional information about the data event. So here you can see we have a sheet inside of an Excel document called sales orders. And just quickly, it's got some columns here. It's got an order date, a ship date, a shipping method, a customer ID, product ID, quantity, sales, profit, shipping costs. And so this is standard, average looking transactional data. Now, I'm going to ask a rhetorical question of the audience. I want you to just take a look at this Excel sheet here. And this is the type of question you might be asked by your organization. You might be asked by your organization, how did our products perform per product category? Now, if you look at this transactional data here, and you look at these columns, you might realize that there is no product category column. Uh-oh, I'm being asked a question by my organization, and I'm not necessarily sure I have the data to answer it. Well, as I dig a little bit deeper here, I can see that in my sales order, I have a customer ID column and I have a product ID column. And then as I scoot over here, I have a products table. And in this products table, I have a product ID column. Now, newsflash, this is eventually what we would use to form a relationship and allow us to interrogate our sales order data by our products table, thereby being able to create a visualization about product category and performance. But as a new user, one of the most difficult things to understand is, how does my data relate to itself? In my data folder, I also have beyond this Microsoft Excel document, I also have a CSV file. Now, a CSV file, if you've never actually seen a real CSV file, if you've only ever seen it loaded into Excel, this is typically what a CSV file would look like. CSV stands for comma separated value, and it's a list of data here where everything is separated by comma instead of a column inside of an Excel document. Now, CSV files have a distinct advantage in them in that they can be very, very, very large. Where an Excel worksheet tops out at 1,000,000 rows, a CSV file can contain millions, plural, of data rows in it. CSV files can be very, very large and contain tons of data. So as someone new to Power BI, my organization has asked me to start building some reports. And this is the data that I've got to work with. Now, I'm not really sure if this data has any sort of relationship in it that I'll be able to interrogate. Newsflash, it does, but as a new user, I might not fully understand. So one thing that I can use artificial intelligence for before I even get into the Power BI application is I can take my organization's data and I can feed it into a generative AI system and ask it to look for naturally occurring relationships in my data sets. These relationships will help me form complex interrogations of this data. So I've got my two data sets here, one in Excel and one as a CSV file. I'm going to utilize ChatGPT to do this. Now, you could use Copilot, you could use Gemini, you could use Claude, any of those types of tools. If you're from Johns Hopkins, you could use Hop GPT. Any of those tools will do what I'm about to do. I am using ChatGPT as I taught it yesterday, so it's top of mind for me. But again, I could do this also in Microsoft Copilot or any of these other generative AI systems. So what I'm going to do is I got my files in a little folder here on my computer. I'm going to take those files, first my CSV file, then I'm going to take my Excel file. And so I put those both into ChatGPT. Now, disclaimer, this is all fake data, okay? None of this is real. None of the people in here are real. None of the events are real. My ability to upload into ChatGPT is driven by the fact that this data is fake and contains no PII or PHI or company secrets. As someone who cares a lot about data privacy, specifically inside of some of these models, you do want to be careful about what you upload. So this data would be something that I would be considering uploading into ChatGPT. But before I did that, I might want to check to make sure there's no PII or PHI. So again, personally identifiable information, protected health information, company secrets. That's a disclaimer. A lot of people will obviously still continue to use this tool or a tool like Copilot, which does a little bit better job of protecting your data in order to answer questions here. So with my data sets uploaded, one of the first and exploratory things that I can do with artificial intelligence is I can start exploring trends and information inside of this data as it relates to Power BI. And the absolute first question I want to ask it is about relationships. I have three tables or three sheets inside of an Excel document. They're not technically tables. And I have a CSV file here. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT, I am going to upload this CSV file and this Excel file into Power BI. Are there any potential relationships that exist between these sheets and CSV file? So one of the first things that you'll be challenged with inside of Power BI when we're working with blank reports and we're building data sets from scratch is this concept of relational data. Power BI is a relationship engine. It is designed so you can upload multiple data sets, create relationships with them, and then interrogate your data in an interesting way. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. But before I do that, I'm going to load my data into the AI to help me. As a new user, I may not understand how my relationships are laid out. And so here, Power BI is going to, or I'm sorry, ChatGPT is going to look at my data sets here. And it's going to tell me if there are any relationships that are present in my data. And here it finds a primary relationship with the customer ID column. Both data sets contain a customer ID column. The customer CSV has a customer ID column, and the sales products Excel has a customer ID column. This type of relationship is what we refer to as a one-to-many relationship, where each customer is listed once on our customers table, but can be listed many times in our sales table. So in Power BI, we would create this type of relationship. This would give us sales by region, profit by state, quantity by city, customer level aggregation. Now, what's nice about this is it also goes into it goes into a what we call a star schema. Now, a star schema is the type of data model that you typically want to use inside of Power BI. So now it's asking me about an implicit star schema structure. If I'm modeling this properly in Power BI, our structure should look like this. We'll have a fact table, which will sales products, contain sales, profit, and quantity, and a dimension table, customers. This is a classic star schema setup. So from here, as a brand new user to Power BI, one thing I might not understand is what this means. What is this implicit star schema structure? When you learn Power BI, you'll learn all about star schemas. If you're a database manager, you'll know all about star schemas. But I bet at least one of you out here doesn't know what this means. So one other thing that I can do here is I can continue on my conversation with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a conversational engine, and I can ask it to elaborate on what a star schema is. I am unfamiliar with the term star schema. Can you explain it to me before I load my data in to Power BI? One of the main ways that generative AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., is used is for an explanation of something. Now, you can also use ChatGPT and Copilot, etc., to create things, but a common use case inside of these programs is to explain something, teach something, help troubleshoot something, etc. So we've got this list up here talking about this ensures an implicit star schema. I'm a brand new Power BI user. I don't know much about star schemas. So I've asked ChatGPT to explain what a star schema is. Understanding this before loading in our data will help save a lot of cleanup later. What is a star schema? A star schema is a way to organize data for reporting and analytics. It has one central table with numbers you want to measure, and several surrounding tables that describe those numbers. Visually, it looks like a star. So even from this just base description here, I'm getting the idea. So the fact table, the center of the star, contains sales, profit, quantity, cost, revenue. In my case, my sales products is my fact table because it contains all of this. It answers questions like what were total sales, what were total profit, how many units were sold, when were they sold, etc. Now, the points on the stars often come in the form of what we call fact tables. I'm giving you a little lesson in Power BI here. A fact table will generally contain supporting information about one or more columns inside of your fact table here. So these dimension tables, the points of the star, will give us additional information. Now I'm going to take this blank Power BI report and I'm going to load in those two data sets, and you'll see the culmination of this star schema will occur. First, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab an Excel workbook. I'm going to grab this Excel workbook and I'm going to bring in two tables from it, products and sales orders. I'm going to load that data in without much fanfare. Just load it in. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab that CSV file. Once again, without much fanfare, I'm just going to load the data in, recognizing that in reality, I would pay a little bit more attention to what's going on. So now that I've loaded my data in, inside of Power BI, there's a relationship manager, and I'm going to check and see if the relationship between the customers and the sales table exists. ChatGPT said it would, and it would be based on the customer ID column. If I look at ChatGPT here and I scroll up, I can see that the primary relationship is through customer ID. So let's see if that actually happened when I loaded into Power BI. And as a matter of fact, Power BI has detected a relationship between my customer's CSV file and my sales order table. When I hover my mouse over, I can see that it's based on customer ID. I can also see it detected another relationship based on product ID. So Power BI will automatically, through the use of a little bit of AI and some fuzzy logic matching, look for relationships when you load in your data tables. ChatGPT said I was going to see this, and I am, and it started to explain the star schema for me, where I've got a table in the center and then tables on the outside. And those tables will have a one-to-many relationship, just like I'm seeing right here. So ChatGPT was correct. There are relationships here. And because those relationships exist, these lines connecting my data tables, I can build visualizations by asking questions of three separate data sets. Remember, inside of my data, I had three separate things I'm working with. I had a CSV file, which contains all this customer information. I had a sales order table, and I had a products table. Now that those three things are loaded in, my customers, my products, and my sales orders, while individual data tables and individual queries inside of Power BI, while they are three separate entities, Because ChatGPT was able to tell me that a relationship existed, I felt confident loading these 3 data sources, and it is correct, a relationship exists, which means I can ask a question like this: which of my customers bought which products? How much did they spend on them? And then what year did they buy them in? So now I have a table that is interrogating 3 separate data sources that I've added in, because ChatGPT informed me that these relationships should exist. I wouldn't have known that as a beginning user. So that is one way in which, as new users, we can start using generative AI to help us with Power BI. We can upload our data sets. We can even do some analysis inside of ChatGPT, which I'll show you in a second. But first and foremost, as a new user, I can take the data that I'm planning on adding in, and then I can ask it, is there a relationship that exists between these data tables, or are they not worth adding in to my Power BI report? Now, I happen to have an Access database file here that I can upload, and I could ask a follow-up question and say, does this Access file have any meaningful relationships with the CSV or Excel file? So here, it's looking at the files, and it's telling me that there is likely no meaningful relationship between this Access database and this Excel and CSV file. So if my organization sent me this Access file and said, oh, this relates, I can load it in to ChatGPT and make a determination whether it does. As a matter of fact, this Access database does not have any relationship between these file types here. Now that I'm in Power BI here, I can still use ChatGPT for a variety of things. So first and foremost, I used it to look at my data before I even loaded it in, just to determine if the data was relational, if it would be a good fit for Power BI. And then I checked out an Access file, which isn't a good fit for Power BI, so I'm not going to bother loading that in. The next thing I can do with generative AI is I can ask it for specific application help. So while I'm using Power BI here, when I build a data set, such as something that looks like this, I've got some data, I've got some visualizations built. Now I'm noticing here that one thing that seems to be driving me nuts is when I click on something in Power BI, all my visualizations seem to change. If I click on basketball down here, all my visualizations are changing. And this seems to be all over Power BI reports. Now, Power BI sets this up by default, and it has to do with how visualizations are related to one another on a page. But let's say that I don't want some of these visualizations to interact with one another. When I click on the map, I don't want the rest of my visualizations to change. I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT for help with some troubleshooting. Inside of Power BI, whenever I click on a data point inside of visualization, all the other visualizations change. How can I turn this off? Now I'm getting step-by-step instructions. Click on the visual that is causing the filtering. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to drag this off to another screen. I'm going to follow the instructions here. I'll move it back in a second. So I don't want the map to change anything. So I'm going to click on the map. I am then going to go to the top ribbon and click Format, like it's telling me to. Top ribbon, click Format. Select Edit Interactions. Awesome. Go to Format, Edit Interactions. Now I'm going to see small icons appear on all other visuals on the page. Each visual will show 3 possible options: a filter icon, which is a funnel, a highlight icon, which is a circle, and no icon, which is a circle with a slash. So while selected on my map, I'm going to look at these other visualizations, and I'm going to see, okay, I don't want it to interact with this. I don't want it to interact with this. And I don't want it to interact with this. I'll turn Edit Interactions off. Now, when I click on my map here, I'm looking at different states. None of my other visualizations are changing. It'll even give me additional tips or ask me additional follow-up questions, difference between cross-filter and cross-highlight, how slicers behave, etc. So ChatGPT can also be used to help troubleshoot or answer questions inside of our Power BI application here. When I loaded in my data behind the scenes here with my Power BI, one thing that I noticed, and you might have noticed quickly as well, is in my data here for my customers, all of my customers are based in the United States. But immediately I see the customer Joseph Alvarez from Lowell, Massachusetts. Their zip code is incorrect. Now, what it's probably missing, if I had to guess, looking at the rest of these zip codes and finding any zip codes that have only 4 characters, I'm guessing that what happened is my zeros got dropped from the beginning. Now, as a beginning user, I don't really know how to fix that. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT. I have a customer table with a zip code column. The zip code column did not load the leading zeros. How can I add these in Power BI And I'll be specific here because otherwise I'm going to get like 5 different ways of doing it in Power Query. Power Query is a method that's attached to Power BI that lets me go into the data and will let me go and will give me ways in which I can do this here. So here it gives me several sets of instructions. Now I know how to I obviously know how to do this, but we'll pretend like I don't. So here I'm going to go in, I'm going to follow those instructions. I'm going to select transform data. Sure. And in my customers table, I can see that I've got this zip code column here. So I've got a variety of instructions. One of the nice things about using generative AI is it will generally give you a couple of different ways to solve the problem, as long as those ways exist inside of Power BI. So first, I could change the data type to text. Sometimes that alone is enough to bring in leading zeros. But I do that, and I can see the leading zeros aren't brought in. That's because the leading zeros weren't part of the original data set. No problem. What is ChatGPT's next suggestion? Here is I could go to the transform column. I could find my format command, which is here. Then in my format command, I can follow my instructions here. Format. And we could choose add a prefix here. We could trim it. We could clean it. We could follow those instructions. Add a value to the front of each value in the column. I could add the 0 in that way, although that's not exactly going to do what I want it to do. So ChatGPT even gives me the code that I can write here. So if I want to do this the most efficient way possible, I can just go to add a column, custom column, and I can take that code right from ChatGPT and I can paste it in. Now, when I click OK, I know why it didn't work. 1 second. Pretty sure this needs to have its space. Yep. So now it took my zip code column and it copied it over here. The code, which this basically reads, take the text from the original zip code column, create a new column, make sure that everything in the column has 5 characters, and if it doesn't, pad the start with a 0. I can just change this to text, and now I can delete my old zip code column here, rename this to zip code, and now I've fixed a big potential problem with my mapping software here, because it would be really hard for me to build a map if the zip codes are not correct. So you can see here, I've got that leading 0 now. Now, when I look at my table view for my customers, my zip code column has all of those leading zeros where necessary. Now, another big part of Power BI is what we like to call DAX. I have a problem here. Inside of my products table, I have a product ID column and a product name column. Now, ostensibly, these do the same thing for my organization. However, there are different groups inside my organization that use the product ID versus the product name. So when I'm building a visualization and I want to build something that's product related, I have to choose between a table that contains product IDs and this table is helpful for my warehouse staff or my purchasers. They can read the product ID. But my sales staff and my marketing staff, they don't use product ID to refer to the products. They use product name. So I would have to build a separate visualization here, switching out product name with product ID. Now, these visualizations are exactly the same, except one shows the name of the product and one shows the ID of the product. Now, having two visualizations that show the exact same thing is incredibly silly. So one of the things that I can do is I can utilize what we call DAX. DAX is short for data analysis expression. It allows me to create new columns inside of Power BI for my data model. And what I want to do is I want to take my product ID column and my product name column, and I want to combine them into a new column so I can use both in the same visualization. But since I don't know how to do that, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. I have a products table in Power BI with a product ID column. And what is it? It is, hold on one second. It is product name and a product name column. I would like to combine these two into a new column called product, which will be product ID, then a space, a dash, and a space, and then product name. I want to do this with DAX. Now notice here that when I'm using ChatGPT, I'm not asking it in code. I'm not using any special language. I am talking to this tool exactly like you would talk to Gary in your office who knows a lot about Power BI. Hey, Gary, I've got this products table in Power BI. It's got a product ID column. It's got a product name column. I want to combine them into a new column called product. It's going to be product ID, then a space, a dash, and a space, and then the product name. I want to do this with DAX. How do I do it? And Gary will send back the code I need to do this. So I'm going to take this code, and I'm going to click on modeling, new column like it's telling me to. I'm in the wrong Power BI. I have like 4 Power BIs open. Sorry, one sec. I'm going to go to modeling. I'm going to go to new column. I'm going to paste in that code. All right, let's take a look. Now I'm going to build the same visualization And so now quickly, I've created a DAX measure here, which has combined product ID and product name for me. This helps me build a visualization that both my warehouse and my sales team can engage with. You can also use ChatGPT to build more complicated DAX things like a date table. One thing that often will go into Power BI is what we call a date table. Date tables are usually just lists of dates, and with them, you can interrogate your data over a variety of different measures. One of the most popular ways to make a date table is to utilize DAX. DAX can create an entire table. Now, let's say, because normally when we have a date table here inside of Power BI, it calculates the date, the month, and the year for me, and I can add any additional columns here. Now, one thing that you'll notice is inside of my date table, it's automatically broken down into year, quarter, month, or day. So if my fiscal quarter starts Q1, I can analyze sales data by quarter, and this is fiscal quarter 1, fiscal quarter 2, fiscal quarter 3, fiscal quarter 4. However, if I don't have fiscal quarters that start in January, let's say that, for example, my fiscal Q1 starts in October 1st. I would need to build a custom date table in order to represent that. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, I need to build a date table in DAX with fiscal quarters. My Q1 starts October 1st. So it's giving me the code for the entire table here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go into modeling, and I'm going to select new table. I'm going to paste in all that code and hit enter. Now I have a new date table where I've got fiscal month, fiscal year, regular year. And so I can track by fiscal quarter, fiscal month, fiscal year, instead of just regular year, quarter, and date. So now I just need to make a quick relationship with this new date table here. Now I can ask the same question of my data. I'll make this a little bit smaller so we can compare. And now I can use fiscal quarter and sales. And so if I go ahead and I turn that into a line, we can see that normally with a regular quarter, our Q1 is down here. But if I do it by fiscal quarter, then the data changes here. So you can use DAX to build entire tables. One of the most important things you can do there is building a date table. Now, inside of Power BI itself, there are some AI features. The first is that you can right-click on a visualization and have Power BI summarize it for you. This will create a narrative either using built-in Copilot or custom AI script inside of Power BI. Now I've got a text-based narrative about this visualization over here. At $5,700.82, tennis rackets had the highest sum of cost and was so much higher than youth green shorts. Tennis racket accounted for this cost. Across all product categories, costed this, costed that. Here's the sales here. Now, this text will change. For example, when I go and I click on a slicer here, and I slice this visualization to just show me apparel, now this visualization here only is talking about apparel. One common mistake that report builders leave out of Power BI is text to explain what is going on in their pages. It is very easy as the data builder to just assume that everyone that looks at this in the future is going to understand what all of these visualizations mean. But I can summarize the specific visualization and then get a text box that will change depending on what I click on. You can also add a narrative for an entire set of visualizations on your page. So this narrative here is determined by any of these visualizations on the page. It is an aggregation of all of these visualizations. Once again, if I click on a specific visualization and make a change, the narrative changes. If I change the order date, the narrative changes. So narratives are a key visualization type that you can add that will help you just through the use of AI to explain your report pages. Now, when I upload this into the cloud, first I've got to save it. This is the final step for most Power BI users is they will publish these things into the web where they can share them and people can build dashboards off them. One of the first things that happens when you publish to Power BI is you get the ability to, of course, load into your Microsoft Fabric and see the report that you've built. But two, you're offered the opportunity to get AI insights. Quick Insights will scan all of your data, apply AI algorithms to it, and allow you to pick from additional visualizations that you didn't build. So after I've built all of these things and I go to upload, when I upload, I can gather additional insights that get turned into visualizations. Now, not all of these are going to be helpful, but here is a sales by product ID visualization. Here is a cost plus shipping cost analysis over time, including a trend line. So our cost and our shipping cost have been going steadily up over time. I did not build a visualization that shows this. Here is a count of our orders by shipping method. If my boss had asked me, hey, are people using anything other than standard shipping? This visualization here, which I didn't build, the AI did, can be pinned to a brand new or existing dashboard. When it's pinned to a dashboard, then this visualization is tracked there. I didn't build it, the AI did. So the AI can come up with quick insights. The final thing that we can do with AI inside of a Power BI, specifically in the Power BI fabric, is we can ask questions about our data. And again, this is driven by artificial intelligence. So when I click on Q&A, I get a list of questions that are AI generated here. So I could ask for the average unit price. And it will create a card visualization for me for that. I could say average unit price per year. Now I've got our average unit price per year. And something interesting comes out of this visualization, which is that from 2021 to 2022, we took a dip. I don't know why. I don't know enough about the data behind the scenes. So I could go ahead, and if I want to understand this, one, I can pin this visual so the visualization will exist. Now I have down here this new visualization created by AI that's tracking our average unit price. And then, of course, I could come full circle and I could load in my data back in to Power BI, because one of the things I can do is I can export this here to a CSV file, save that file, and then I know we're at the end here, but save that file and load that file into ChatGPT and say, help me with analysis of this data. So I used AI to scan my data, create visualizations of my data, and then I exported a file that I can load into ChatGPT to do additional analysis with. So we've really come full circle. We've come from using ChatGPT to just introduce some basic concepts about Power BI to building visualizations, using AI, exporting the data, and using a different AI model to help me analyze my data here. All right, questions?
Jon, while we await those questions, if you could show my last slide there.
Of course.
That was fantastic. I absolutely love it. Anytime AI can help me do my work, I am all on board.
Absolutely. And we do go over some of these techniques as well as some other things in our Power BI classes. So that is, again, these are things that we cover inside of our Power BI training.
Great. As a matter of fact, we do have some special offers for you today. I do want to tell you the difference between those first two classes. Power BI Analysis Practitioner is for those who have the free license of Power BI. And Power BI Professional is for those who have a paid license. The difference is day 3. The first class only has 2 days. The second class has 3 days, and then covers some of those templates that you get and some of those features that you get in the paid version that are not available in the free version. But they're taught on the same 2 days to begin with. And then we also have our Power BI Dashboard in a Day class. That's actually coming up on 3/6. If you wanted to get in last minute, I think we still have a couple seats left. We can do that for you. That is the class on steroids, right? So we're going to create a dashboard in 1 day. You got to come in ready to hit the ground running on that one. We also, by popular demand, have added a Mastering DAX for data analysis. DAX is new to many people who are starting with Power BI. And then, of course, just a class on data transformation and modeling. That's an art in and of itself. And then I wanted to introduce you, for those who have Microsoft Suite, in a new course, an Introduction to Microsoft 365 and AI Administration. So some of you who are handling the admin in the background might be interested in that course. And then, of course, our ChatGPT AI for Everyone course I'm highlighting because we really cover a lot of prompting techniques in that class. And so if you're new to AI, this is a great place to start. And if you haven't quite mastered the prompting, if you're still searching like it's a search engine or writing like it's a search engine, you'd want to take a look at that class to see how we can help you there. All of these classes are available open enrollment, but we can also do them privately just for your group and customize them to your specific needs. Any questions that we have to answer there, John?
I don't think
Let's see the
so.
dashboard. I don't think so. You guys are on it. So with that, I think we'll turn your afternoon back to you with some time to catch up on that lunch if you haven't eaten it yet. We do ask you to fill out our survey. That'll help us understand if we hit the right topics for you, and then we'll do a drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card. So make sure you fill out that survey. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Enjoy your pizza.